Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another chilling night. I'm your storyteller tonight, and I want to take you down a road no one dares to walk. A terrifying Halloween story based on real events, passed down for generations in a small American town. People often say, some Halloween memories never fade because they were written in blood and fear. And tonight, you'll hear one of those memories. It all began on a late October evening. The streets were covered in fallen leaves. Cold wind brushed against the windows, and jack-o'-lanterns glowed eerily in front of every home. Children in spooky costumes laughed as they knocked on doors for candy, the sound of joy echoing through the neighborhood. But at the edge of town stood a house no child dared approach. Locals called it the Whispering House. They said that every Halloween, strange knocks echoed from within, footsteps down empty hallways, and sometimes faint giggles from someone unseen. The legend told that many years ago, on Halloween night itself, an entire family vanished inside that house. No blood, no struggle, just a dinner table still warm, lights still on, and an old radio softly playing a forgotten tune. Since then, the house had been locked and abandoned. Some curious souls broke in from time to time. Some fled in terror, swearing they heard whispers calling their names in the dark. Others were never seen again. And tonight, I'll tell you the story of 4 college students who decided to explore that house on Halloween night. They wanted to test their courage, film a video for social media, and prove the stories were just myths. They didn't know. Stepping inside that house meant gambling with their souls. Their names were Mark, Jessica, Daniel, and Claire, all seniors majoring in media studies. The idea came from Mark, the daring, reckless one, always chasing attention. He grinned and said, "If we want our YouTube channel to blow up this Halloween, there's no better place than that haunted house." One night, one video, 1 million views. Jessica, Mark's girlfriend, was hesitant. She didn't believe in ghosts, but something about that house made her uneasy. Daniel and Claire saw it as a wild adventure, a thrill to brag about later. That Halloween night, while the rest of the town shimmered with jack-o'-lanterns and laughter, the 4 drove toward the outskirts. Street lights grew sparse, houses disappeared, and finally they stopped in front of a tall, silent house. Its broken windows gaped like hollow eyes staring into nothing. The house stood shrouded in darkness, utterly still, like it was holding its breath. The iron gate, rusted and half-broken, loomed like a warning. Mark smirked. "Let's go. Don't tell me you're scared already." Daniel turned on his flashlight. The weak beam cut through tall weeds swaying in the cold air. They pushed open the gate. It screeched long and sharp, echoing through the night. As they climbed the porch steps, Jessica froze. She heard it, soft, faint, right beside her ear. A whisper. "Jess! Jess!" She spun around. No one. Only the wind through the trees. "I must be hearing things," she muttered to herself. The front door wasn't locked. It opened easily, as if the house had been waiting. Inside, the air was damp and cold, carrying the metallic scent of something old, something like dried blood. Daniel's flashlight swept across the living room. A long wooden table sat there, covered in dust, but still set for dinner. Plates, cups, even utensils, untouched as if the meal had been interrupted only moments ago. Claire whispered, "No one's lived here for years, so why does it feel like they just left?" They all laughed nervously, but unease crept beneath their skin. Every step they took made the floorboards groan, as if sighing under the weight of their presence. The deeper they went, the colder it became. Old family photos hung crooked on the walls, their faces scratched out, as if someone had tried to erase them from existence. Jessica snapped a photo, partly for evidence, partly to distract herself from the rising fear pressing on her chest. Meanwhile, Mark kept filming, forcing a grin for the camera. "Hey, everyone!" We're inside the infamous Whispering House. So far, nothing but dust and cobwebs. "Guess the ghosts are camera shy." He chuckled, but the sound died quickly when Daniel's flashlight flickered and went out. Darkness swallowed them whole. Only their shaky breathing filled the silence, until a faint melody floated down from upstairs. A lullaby, old, soft, off-key. A voice cracked and broken, singing from a throat that shouldn't still be alive. They froze. Daniel finally got his flashlight working again, the weak beam trembling as it lit up the staircase. For just a moment, they saw it. A small figure standing at the top of the stairs. A child, motionless, watching. But when the light hit it fully, it was gone. Claire gasped, clutching Daniel's arm. "I'm not kidding. There's something here." Mark tried to sound calm. "Maybe it's just someone squatting here, or a prank." But even he couldn't hide the fear in his eyes. They decided to go upstairs, to prove nothing was there. The lullaby grew softer, echoing deeper down the hallway, as if beckoning them. Each step creaked beneath their feet, counting down to something unseen. At the top, they found a hallway lined with closed doors. From the very last one, a thin beam of light leaked through the crack, steady, waiting. Jessica swallowed hard. If this is a game, then who's playing with us? Mark reached out and pushed the door open. It creaked slowly, painfully, as if resisting. Inside was a small, empty room. In the center of the rotting wooden floor sat a single candle, its flame flickering weakly, though there was no wind. The candlelight shivered as if afraid. All four of them held their breath as they stepped inside. On the walls, smeared red letters glowed faintly under the flashlight. The writing was rushed, uneven, but still legible. "They whisper, they never leave. Don't listen to them. Don't answer them." Claire bit her lip, nearly dropping the flashlight. She stumbled backward, bumping into Mark, whispering, "We need to get out." This isn't a joke, but Mark, caught between excitement and fear, raised his camera, panning across the room. He forced a nervous laugh. This is exactly what our viewers want. A cursed room, perfect for a Halloween video. Daniel stepped closer to the candle in the middle of the room. Beside it, he noticed an old cracked leather journal covered in dust. Carefully, he opened it. The yellowed pages were filled with shaky handwriting, like that of a madman. The same phrases repeated over and over. "They call my name at night. If I answer, they'll come in. God, please forgive us." And on the final page, written in huge, desperate letters, was only one word: run. The moment Daniel read it aloud, the candle went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Then the whispering began. Not just one voice, dozens, hundreds, echoing from every direction. Men, women, children, all calling their names one by one. Mark, Jessica, Daniel, Claire, as if the house had known who they were before they ever walked in. Jessica clutched Mark's arm, tears welling up in her eyes. Her voice shook. They know our names. Mark, we have to get out of here. But the door behind them slammed shut on its own. Footsteps echoed above, slow, heavy, deliberate. The walls trembled. The air grew thick, suffocating. Daniel swung the flashlight toward the corner and saw a little girl. She stood motionless in a white dress, long black hair covering most of her face. She faced away from them, but when the light passed over her, she snapped her head around, a full 180 degrees. Her face was ghostly pale, her eyes two empty black voids. Claire screamed, stumbling back into the wall. Instantly, dozens of skeletal hands burst from the plaster, clawing at her as if the walls themselves were alive. Mark grabbed her, trying to pull her free, but the hands were ice cold, gripping tighter and tighter. One of them slid up her neck, squeezing until she could barely breathe. Desperate, Daniel raised the journal and shouted. Daniel trembled, holding the journal out toward the creature. Instantly, the shadow halted, then unleashed a furious, guttural roar. The entire hallway shook violently, light fixtures crashing down around them in a shower of glass. The creature jerked its arm, and the journal in Daniel's hands burst into flames. He dropped it, staring in horror as it turned to ash on the floor. Claire broke down, sobbing hysterically. We're going to die here. There's no way out. But Jessica suddenly remembered the words scrawled on the wall. Don't listen to them. Don't answer them, she shouted, her voice cutting through the chorus of laughter and whispers. Don't listen. Don't let them control you. And strangely, when Jessica squeezed her eyes shut and covered her ears, the whispers began to fade. The walls stopped trembling. The light steadied, flickering back to life. Jessica spoke, trembling. They want us to give in, to lose hope. If we don't answer them, maybe they'll lose their power. Mark gritted his teeth, pulling everyone close. Together they ran, hands clamped over their ears, refusing to let the voices crawl inside their minds. But the shadow still followed, faster, closer. Then another door appeared ahead. Unlike the others, this one glowed, bright, almost heavenly. Daniel shouted, There! That's the way out! They sprinted toward it, but the shadow was already there, blocking the door. It raised its long, twisted arms, claws gleaming in the dim light. In that single desperate moment, Mark turned to them and yelled, Go! I'll hold it off! He charged the creature, swinging a splintered plank from the floor. The sound of impact echoed through the hall, followed by a monstrous roar. The two figures clashed and vanished into darkness. Jessica screamed, but Daniel and Claire dragged her through the glowing doorway. They tumbled out onto damp grass beneath a starless sky. Gasping for air, coughing, they turned back toward the house. It stood completely still, dark, silent, as if nothing had ever happened. Mark was gone. Jessica collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably. Daniel whispered, voice shaking. He stayed behind. Claire's eyes filled with tears. Or maybe he never left. In that moment, all three understood. The house didn't just trap the living, it absorbed them. It made them part of itself. The survivors sat on the cold, wet grass, the house looming behind them like a slumbering beast. No whispers, no laughter, just silence. But silence didn't mean safety. Jessica wiped her tears with a trembling hand. We left him there. Daniel looked down, fists clenched. He made his choice. Without Mark, we wouldn't have made it out. Claire said nothing. The terror in her eyes hadn't faded. Behind them, the house seemed to breathe, quietly, patiently, waiting. On the drive back, no one spoke. Only the sound of wind howling past the car windows filled the silence. When they reached the dorm parking lot, Jessica noticed something in the trunk. Mark's camera. None of them remembered putting it there. Daniel's face went pale. Slowly, he picked it up and pressed the power button. The screen flickered, glitched, and began to play the final recording. The video showed them, all four, in the candlelit room. But there was something horribly wrong. Mark wasn't in a single frame. Every shot showed only Jessica, Daniel, and Claire. Mark's voice could be heard faintly behind the camera, but he never appeared, not once. Jessica screamed, hurling the camera to the ground. It shattered, the screen going black. No one spoke, but deep down they all knew. The Mark who'd walked out of that house with them wasn't really Mark. Maybe he hadn't been since the moment they entered. Maybe the house had taken him the instant he stepped through the door and left behind something else, a shadow, a lure. The next day they went to the police. But when they returned to the location, the house was gone. Only an empty field remained. Overgrown grass, no foundation, no gate, no trace it had ever existed. The police dismissed them as pranksters or delusional students chasing ghost stories, but the three of them knew the truth. The house never disappeared. It simply waited for its next visitors. Years passed. Jessica, Daniel, and Claire went their separate ways. But they shared one unspoken rule. They never celebrated Halloween again. No decorations, no parties, no candy. Because every year on the night of October 31st, they still heard it, a knock on the door. When they opened it, no one was there, only the wind. And in that wind, faint and distant, the whisper of their names, calling, waiting. And the people in town still tell the story that on Halloween night, if you listen closely between the rustling leaves and the cold wind, you can hear a lullaby, a child's soft humming. You might say, it's just an urban legend. But remember this, every legend begins with a truth. Some voices should never be answered, and some houses should never be entered. So on this Halloween night, if you hear a whisper in the dark calling your name, don't answer.
Welcome back to another night of chilling tales. Tonight, I'm taking you to a small town tucked away somewhere in the American Midwest, a place where Halloween isn't just a night for candy and costumes. It's a night to survive. The people there believe that if they don't follow the old traditions on the night of October 31st, the dead will return, and they'll come to collect what's owed. That town is called Derryville, a quiet, harmless name, but its history is anything but peaceful. Nearly 200 years ago, on a cold autumn night, Derryville suffered a Halloween tragedy, a mysterious fire that killed 27 townspeople. No one ever discovered how it started. Since then, locals believe that the spirits of those burned alive still wander the streets, searching for a way back into the world of the living. To keep them away, generation after generation, Dairyville's residents have followed a strange ritual. Every window and door must be sealed with a piece of red paper. A pumpkin lantern must be placed in front of each house, and its flame must never go out through the night. And most importantly, after the clock strikes 11 p.m., no one is allowed to go outside. They say that after 11, the veil between the living and the dead fades, and stepping outside means offering your soul to the other side. Young people call it superstition, an old wives' tale, but the adults of Dairyville never take chances. Every year, right at 10 o'clock, shops close, streets go silent, and rows of glowing pumpkins flicker in the cold wind. The whole town falls quiet, like a cemetery holding its breath. But this year, a group of young people decided to challenge that tradition. They wanted to prove that all those ghost stories were nothing but small-town fear, and that Halloween night became the night they'd never forget. Dairyville, October 31st. The town was bathed in the soft orange glow of jack-o'-lanterns. Children in vampire and witch costumes skipped from door to door, laughing and shouting, "Trick or treat!" Adults smiled, but their eyes kept darting to their watches, as if counting down to something inevitable. At the center square, the annual Halloween festival was in full swing. Apple bobbing, country music, the smell of hot pumpkin pie filling the air. People laughed, danced, tried to make the night feel ordinary. But if you looked closely, you'd notice something off. Every shop window and house around the square already had red paper charms taped to the glass, fluttering lightly in the October wind like fragile talismans. Among the crowd stood 4 young friends: Ethan, a reckless college sophomore obsessed with making viral TikToks; Maya, his girlfriend, always chasing the perfect shot, especially if it had something spooky about it; Cole, Ethan's best friend, a tech guy who believed in science, not spirits; Lena, Cole's younger cousin, 18, shy, and far more cautious than the others. They had all come back from the city to visit family for the weekend, and, of course, they'd heard the same warning everyone else had: don't go outside after 11. Ethan laughed, rolling his eyes. You seriously believe that crap? It's 2025. Ghosts aren't real. Cole joined in, holding up his phone camera. Tonight, we're breaking the Dairyville curse. We'll go out after 11, live stream it, and show the whole world there's nothing out there but fog and old stories. The adults nearby went silent. An old woman frowned deeply, her wrinkled hands trembling. Don't mock them, children, she warned. The dead don't like to be challenged. You'll bring their anger down on all of us. Ethan just smirked and threw his soda bottle to the ground. The sound echoed across the square like a shot. Maya half smiled, half nervous, whispering, It'll make a great story, though. Imagine the photos. Lena tugged at her cousin's sleeve, voice barely above a whisper. Cole, maybe we shouldn't. I've got a bad feeling. Cole wrapped an arm around her shoulder, reassuringly. Relax, it's just a bedtime story. And who knows, maybe we'll hit 1 million views. By 10 o'clock, the square began to empty. Families gathered their kids, locking arms as they hurried home. Doors slammed shut one by one, bolts and chains clinking behind them. In less than 15 minutes, Dairyville, once glowing with life, was silent, completely still. Only the flickering of pumpkin lanterns remained, casting trembling shadows across the empty streets. The flames, Inside, hundreds of jack-o'-lanterns flickered wildly, casting twisted shadows on the brick walls. The red papers taped to every window fluttered in the wind, whispering a silent warning. Stay inside. But Ethan's group didn't listen. They quietly slipped out into the night. They picked a small deserted street, turned on the camera, and began recording. Ethan spoke loudly, his tone full of mockery. "All right, folks, it's 10:58 p.m. here in Derryville, this damn little town. They say we're not supposed to be outside after 11, but guess what? We're gonna do it, and prove this whole ghost story is nothing but a bedtime scare." Maya raised her camera, snapping pictures, click, click, each sound echoing in the still air. Cole was live streaming on Instagram. Dozens of viewers joined, commenting jokes and egging them on. Lena lingered behind, her eyes locked on the glowing pumpkins, as if they were watching her. Then the church bell began to toll. Bong, bong. Each chime rolled through the empty town, heavy and slow, pressing down on the silence. 11 o'clock. The four friends stood there, laughing, shouting into the night. "Hey, spirits, come out! We're not scared of you!" A cold wind howled down the street. The flames inside every jack-o'-lantern trembled violently, some nearly going out. Lena shivered, clutching her coat. "Guys, did you hear that?" she whispered. In the space between the final bell and silence, footsteps, slow, dragging, coming from somewhere that wasn't them. The wind screamed between the houses. Those footsteps echoed, dragging, uneven, as if something was walking just behind them. Ethan laughed nervously. "It's probably just the wind." "It's Halloween. Everything sounds creepy tonight." But his voice cracked. His smirk faded. Cole lifted his phone, panning the camera across the street. The screen showed only flickering pumpkins, dark windows, and an empty road. Maya snapped another photo, then froze. She zoomed in on the latest picture. Behind Lena stood a figure, tall, thin, its face blurred beneath a veil of gray mist. My God, guys, look at this," Maya whispered, handing the camera to Ethan. They huddled around. The figure was there, clear as day on the screen. But when they turned around, nothing. The street was empty. Lena's breath hitched, tears welled up. "I told you, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go home." Cole swallowed hard. "It's probably just a reflection or lens flare." "Relax. Let's walk a bit further, then we'll head back." They kept walking, deeper into the narrow street. The laughter was gone, only the sound of the wind scraping along the pavement, dry leaves tumbling, and their footsteps overlapping in uneven rhythm. Then, suddenly, every jack-o'-lantern on the street went dark, pitch black, the kind of darkness that eats the light. Maya screamed, pressing the shutter repeatedly. Each flash burst for a fraction of a second, lighting up scenes like broken frames from a nightmare. In those flashes they saw the red papers on the windows, torn apart. They flapped violently in the wind, revealing pitch-black windows behind them, like open mouths waiting to swallow. Ethan cursed, pulling out his phone, turning on the flashlight. The weak beam cut through the dark, just enough to reveal the street ahead. But something was wrong. The houses didn't look right. Their windows were warped, walls scorched black, roofs collapsed. It wasn't Derryville anymore. It was the town as it must have been 200 years ago, the night it burned. Cole's voice dropped to a whisper. We're not where we were before. Then came the knocking. Knock, knock, knock. Steady, echoing through the dead street. No answer. Only the knocking, moving along the row of houses, door by door, as if an unseen hand was walking with them, knocking, knocking, knocking. Maya's voice trembled. "We need to go back. Now, please." But behind her, the sound stopped, and then came a faint whisper, calling Lena's name. The group turned and started to run, but the street stretched endlessly before them, looping into itself like a nightmare with no exit. They kept running, breathless, but the scene never changed. The same scorched houses, the same blackened windows, the same creaking doors swinging open and shut on their own. Lena screamed, her voice cracking. "We're trapped! This isn't real, right?" Cole grabbed her arm, trying to pull her along, but his feet felt glued to the pavement. They all stopped, gasping, trembling, and that's when they heard it. Children's laughter, soft, echoing, coming from everywhere, from the houses, from the rooftops, from the shadows above. It was bright and playful, yet distorted, like it came from throats that hadn't drawn breath in centuries. A whisper came from right behind Lena's ear. "The game has just begun." She screamed, spinning around, but no one was there, only a single jack-o'-lantern flickering back to life, its eyes glowing red like embers. They could have sworn it had gone out minutes ago. Ethan lost it. "Enough! This is bullshit. Someone's screwing with us," he shouted. He swung the flashlight wildly across the street and froze. There were dozens of figures standing perfectly still on both sidewalks, all burned, all blackened, their flesh cracked, their eyes nothing but hollow pits of ash, and they were all staring directly at the four of them. No one spoke. Under Ethan's trembling beam, more figures appeared, tens, then hundreds, lining the street, shoulder to shoulder, pressed against the walls of ruined houses. Their empty sockets gleamed faintly, reflecting the light like pools of tar. A hiss rippled through the air. Then, as one, the figures tilted their heads. Cole grabbed his cousin's hand and yelled, "Run!" They bolted down the street, their footsteps pounding against the cracked pavement, chased by the warped laughter of unseen children. Doors on both sides flew open and slammed shut, bang, 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 as if invisible hands were tearing through the houses. Ethan was panting, holding the camera to his face. This is it. We're getting this on film. You guys seeing this?" But when he looked at the screen, what he saw wasn't the street. It was a cemetery. Rows of crooked tombstones, pale blue flames flickering on the ground, and those same charred figures dragging themselves forward just a few feet behind. Ethan screamed and hurled the phone. It shattered against the pavement, the light flickering once, then dying completely. Maya stumbled and fell, scraping her knees. Blood trickled down her leg as Lena turned to help her up, and froze. A blackened, blistered hand was clawing its way out of the ground beside Maya's feet. It grabbed her ankle, hard, and started to pull. Maya shrieked, digging her nails into the concrete, blood streaking under her hands. Ethan and Cole lunged to grab her arms, while Lena clung to her wrists, screaming her name. They pulled, shouting, struggling against something unseen beneath the ground, something strong. At last Maya was yanked free, but her arm was burned, the flesh scorched as if eaten by embers. She was sobbing, gasping through her tears. It tried to drag me down." They ran again. Ahead was the town square, the place that had been so bright and cheerful earlier that day. Now it was deserted. The only light came from a single flickering street lamp and an old clock tower, frozen at 11:15. Cole wheezed, clutching his side. If we can make it past the square, maybe we can find the way out. But before they could move, a sound rose around them, a chorus of voices, dozens of children singing softly, eerily, from every direction. A twisted nursery rhyme echoed through the air. Tonight the fire dies, and in that light, the four of them saw what was waiting in the middle of the square. He saw faces, hundreds of them, faces of the burned, twisted in agony, screaming as they clawed their way out of the pumpkin's flesh. Lena collapsed, trembling, her hands pressed over her ears. But a whisper came, soft and close, brushing her ear. "Lena, Lena." She lifted her head. Through the greenish light, a familiar silhouette appeared. Her father. The man who had died years ago. He smiled gently, arms outstretched. "My sweet girl, come to me. Don't be afraid anymore." Tears streamed down her face. She stumbled toward him, ignoring Cole's desperate shouts. But as she neared, the shape began to warp. The smile split open, stretching wide, too wide, until it became a gaping maw. Blue fire burst from his hollow eyes as charred hands reached for her. Lena screamed. Ethan lunged forward, grabbing her just in time. The apparition exploded into ash, scattering through the air with the stench of burnt flesh. Lena went limp in Ethan's arms, unconscious. The others stood frozen, terrified. Maya's voice quivered. "We're not getting out of here. We broke the rules. They won't let us go now." Cole clenched his fists, eyes burning with defiance. "No, there has to be a way. The townsfolk survive every year. There must be a way." Ethan shouted into the suffocating darkness, voice cracking with rage. "If you're spirits, then come out and face me." At once the childish laughter ceased. The air thickened, heavy and electric. Then, the ground split open at the center of the square. Flames erupted upward, and from that burning chasm, something massive began to rise. It wasn't human. It was a monstrosity, a writhing mass of faces, blackened and screaming, fused together in eternal torment. Their collective wail echoed like wind through a graveyard. The creature towered above them, twice the height of a house, its eyes glowing like molten coal. Its voice rumbled from deep within the earth. "You have broken the covenant. Tonight, the dead walk free." The spirit beast unfolded itself, its molten form illuminating the ruined square. Each face on its body was a frozen cry from the night of the fire so long ago. Blue flames licked the walls, casting warped shadows that danced like souls in pain. Ethan stood frozen, camera slipping from his hands and shattering. Cole dragged Lena's limp body away while Maya trembled, unable to look away. "What do we do?" she whispered. Cole's mind flashed back to the old woman's warning earlier that day. "Keep the red paper. Keep the pumpkin lit. It's the only thing that keeps them out." He screamed, "The red paper! The lanterns! We have to relight them. That's the only way." But when they looked around, every jack-o'-lantern had turned into a burning skull. The red charms on the windows were gone, leaving only gaping black voids. The spirit roared, voice shaking the ground. "There is no escape. You will join us." Blue fire burst outward, engulfing the square. Ethan grabbed Maya protectively, but the flames didn't burn flesh. They burned souls. Maya screamed, her eyes rolling white. Then her body fell limp, hollow, her eyes staring blankly into nothing. Ethan shook her frantically. "Maya! Maya, wake up! Please, don't leave me!" But her mouth twisted into a crooked grin. A child's laugh, shrill, broken, escaped her lips. It wasn't her voice anymore. Her body convulsed, then shot upright and ran into the blue fire, vanishing. "Maya!" Ethan's scream tore through the night. "Give her back! Give her back to me!" He broke free from Cole's grip and sprinted toward the flames. Cole shouted after him, "Ethan, no! You'll die!" But it was too late. Ethan disappeared into the inferno. A new face appeared on the monster's body. His face, twisted in agony, crying out among the countless others. Only Cole and Lena remained. Cole held his unconscious cousin, eyes darting wildly as the creature lumbered closer, shaking the earth. In the chaos, he felt something in his pocket, a lighter, and beside him lay a shattered pumpkin, hollow and waiting. Cole set Lena down, his hands trembling as he flicked the lighter to life. The tiny flame sputtered weakly, then suddenly flared up. Orange, not blue. The monster froze. Every one of its charred, blackened eyes turned toward that small, defiant spark. A guttural roar rippled through its massive faces as it staggered backward, retreating from the light as if it burned. Cole screamed. Half clutching Lena tightly, he sprinted through the gap while the creature hesitated. His legs felt like lead, but somehow, he made it through. Behind them, the chorus of screams echoed, rising and fading, until at last, silence. When Cole opened his eyes again, he and Lena were lying on the familiar streets of Dairyville. The jack-o'-lanterns glowed with soft orange light, red paper charms still pasted neatly on the windows. The church bell struck 6. Dawn was breaking. Cole held Lena in his arms, tears spilling freely. She stirred, her eyes wide with fear. "Where's Maya? Where's Ethan?" Cole didn't answer. He just held her tighter, shaking, his gaze fixed on the quiet town square. It was empty now. Peaceful, as if nothing had ever happened. Years passed. Cole stayed in Dairyville, but he never spoke of that night again. Locals whispered about the 4 young people who had broken the curfew, and how only 2 ever came back. Every Halloween, Cole still lit a jack-o'-lantern outside his door. A warm, steady flame that never went out. And sometimes, when the autumn wind swept through the streets, he could swear he heard children laughing in the distance. My friends, this isn't just a story to scare you on Halloween night. Dairyville may be just another forgotten town in America, but the warning it carries is real. Humans are proud creatures. We mock the old traditions, call them superstition, foolish relics of the past. But some traditions exist not to preserve history, but to protect the living. You don't have to believe in ghosts. You don't have to fear the dark. But remember, sometimes wisdom means listening rather than challenging. Because somewhere, out there, after 11 p.m., when the jack-o'-lanterns go dark, something might still be watching you. Have a safe Halloween. Pumpkin.